Hey everybody, welcome to my spoiler review, if you will, of Disney's Planes. Now, I don't know really how much these spoiler reviews work. Well, basically I do. But basically Planes, if you don't want to watch this, then click it off right now. Giving you 5 seconds. Okay. And for those of you that remain, this is a spoiler review, so if you haven't seen the movie, well, after this, you're going to probably think you have. But basically, Planes is pretty good. I mean, our movie basically starts off with Dusty, who's our main protagonist, flying through a dust field but daydreaming at the same time. Now, Dusty is voiced by Dan Cook. Now, he was originally voiced by somebody else, and I'll probably provide a Wikipedia page or Disney Wikipedia page for you guys to look at and find out more. But unfortunately, that was not the case because the guy that originally was supposed to be voiced dropped out, and Dane Cook was brought in. I think this was because they were going to do theatrical. Not really sure. But anyway, Dusty ends up daydreaming while he's prop dusting, acting like, oh yeah, I'm the fastest guy around, daydreaming that he's faster than some bio jets, if you know what I mean. Well, anyway, he gets snapped out of his daydream and is reminded, hey, look, you can't be daydreaming about being this guy, you're just a crop duster. And that's what everybody, except his best buddy, I think his name is, gotta look it up again, but his best buddy, which I guess you could say is one of the side characters, if not the mater of the group, he basically, is telling him, hey, look, well, not the side character, but his boss, or whatever, who's, I guess, played by Cedric the Entertainer, tries to tell him, look, just like everybody else, along with Dottie, who's voiced by Terry Hatcher, the Terry Hatcher of Lois and Clark, that, hey, look, you're not a racer, you're a crop duster. There's no way you can do certain things. Oh yeah, Chug, voiced by Brad Garrett. You might know who that is. But anyway, his friend Chug is supportive of him, and they're able to talk Dottie into helping him out to try to qualify for the, I guess you could say, what is it again? Oh, Wings Across the World race. Basically the WAW, or WATW, or WAW, World Wings Across the World race. So basically he wants to qualify for that race. So he goes to the qualifiers. He goes to this goes to this qualifying round to try to get in. And he comes close, but he ends up getting in 6th because of the one that's ahead of him. Now, the one ahead of him kind of says, hey, good job. It's not every day that a crop duster can actually do what you've done. But then, the person that congratulated him, that came in before him in 5th, later is discovered to have used some illegal enhancements, basically like illegal enhancement drugs, to get where he to get into the position he was. So by discovering this, that person that plane that came in before Dusty is disqualified, and thus Dusty is moved up to 5th place, and now is qualified for the race for the Wings Around the World race. Now, he's happy about this, but realizes he's going to need more training. Well, not realizes he needs more training, but realizes he might need more help. Oh. But like I said, realizes he's going to need more help. Well, not just realizes it, but gets to realize it by a guy that he wants, that he's encouraged by his friend Chug to try to talk to for some training, and that's Skip, and it's Skipper. I guess you could say World War II veteran, a jet veteran, if you know what I mean, or a Navy veteran. So anyway, at first Skipper doesn't want to help the guy, but then he sees what he's doing, and then he tries to say, look, basically he tries to say, hey, look, I understand you want to do this, but you're not meant for it. You don't have the build. You don't seem to have the desire, the passion yet. And Dusty basically has to say, yes, I do have the passion. I want to prove I can be more than just a crop duster. So Skipper does end up training him. And even though the training doesn't go as well for a while, he ends up succeeding and getting better and better and better. He ends up getting better, better, and better, until finally the skipper's like, yeah, this guy's ready now. He's ready to go. He's done. He's learned it. Basically, Dusty goes through all sorts of training, all sorts of obstacles and all that, and over and over and over again, until finally he gets it. He gets the hang of it. The only thing that's holding him down is his fear of heights. Because basically what it is that Skipper's saying, look, even when you're out of fuel, or you feel like you're not going to make it, use the jet stream, get high enough above the jet stream, and you'll be able to use that to fly. So, anyway, he does succeed and everything else. He realizes, you know what, maybe I don't really have to fly that high. I can just fly sort of low, like I'm used to. Anyway, so he's basically the skipper deems that he's ready. He goes off, flies off to New York, I guess you could say, to JFK, to where all the participants are. And you got a great unique, cast here of characters. Now, the antagonist of the film is the three-time world champion Rip Slinger. Now, Rip Slinger, believe it or not, is voiced by Roger Craig Smith, who you might recognize as the voice of Sonic. And basically, one of his Achilles' heels, which is discovered later on by Dusty's best friend, is his ego. His ego of saying, hey, look, I'm in the lead. I'm going to win now. Take my picture, guys. Get my goods out. So anyway, he meets up with him for the first time and realizes this is going to be his rival. Then he meets up with Bulldog, or Bullfrog, who's a British guy, and I guess to me, I think it's a bit of Bullfrog, I think it's a bit of a nod to Bulldog, British, and I'm thinking he's British, sounds almost like Bullfrog or Bulldog or whatever. Let me check again. So to me, I think it's a bit of a nod to British Bulldog, if you know what I mean. Yeah, Bulldog. So I'm thinking it's a bit of a nod. It's Bulldog, so I'm thinking it's a bit of a nod to British Bulldog, seeing he's British, if you know what I mean. But anyway, he meets up with Bulldog, who at first shuns him, until he saves Bulldog during a race, during the second leg, I think the second or third leg of the race. I think it's the second leg. Yes, the second leg of the race from Iceland to Germany. So basically, he saves Bulldog, and Bulldog sees that, okay, maybe you're not such a bad guy. You know, you did save my life. You did, basically, pass up a chance of being in the lead or getting up a little closer in the rankings to save me. Basically indicating that all Dusty wants to do, and this is obvious, and basically indicating during this part of the film that it shows that, sure, Dusty may not win, but he wants to prove that even crop dusters can race with the elite. So, anyway, he meets him. Then he meets El Chupacabra. Voiced by Carlos Alcazar. And this guy, El Chupacabra, sort of I guess you could say is the mater. Well, it's not the, well, it's sort of like the mater, but not really, but whatever. He's sort of the mater of the group. I think, well, the mater in some parts is kind of to Chug, but I guess you could say the eccentric mater or sidekick is sort of here. So anyway, he's kind of like, he wears the mask, and he's a good-hearted guy, but very kind of like full of himself at times. Basically is eccentric, excited, and romantical. And basically shows that romantic side when the next day, as they're getting ready to take off for the race, meets up, finally comes eye to eye. He doesn't meet her just yet, but kind of comes eye to eye with Rochelle, voiced by Julie Louis-Dreyfus. And Rochelle, as I said in my non-spoiler review, sounds very similar to a friend of mine's name, except my friend has a Y instead of an O. Anyway, he meets up with her. He finally meets her in Iceland, finally gets to talk to her in Iceland, and at first it doesn't seem to be going off very well, until later on, I think a couple of laps down, or a couple of legs down, if you will. Well, a couple of legs later, I should say, thanks to help from Dusty at first. Because Dusty's like, look, because he sees him trying to serenade her with sort of a hip-hop kind of deal, but then Dusty's like, no. And then all of a sudden the thing comes unplugged, because at first she shuts the window and the thing and Dusty unplugs the radio, and he's like, no, guys, listen. Basically, he's trying to say, look, this is not how you do it. That's not how what you've been doing is not working. What you need to do is this. And this will work. So basically he says, look, you can't sing you can't sing what you're singing in a hip-hop kind of tone, or pop kind of tone. You need to sing it in a romantic tone, a serenading tone. And this is coming from somebody that, and I'll talk about this in a minute, and it's kind of in a similar situation, but not really. So anyway, El Chupacabra is finally gets the idea, does sing correctly, does kind of express his feelings for her. And I guess you could say, as he puts it, because they're getting ready for that second to last leg of the race. And Dusty's looking at El Chupacabra, who has lipstick all over him, and Dusty's like, what happened to you? And he's like, and Chupacabra's like, I think that song worked a little too well. It awoke something inside her. So basically, yeah. He got what he wanted, but more than he can ever, but a little more than he can bargain for, but at least he got what he wanted. And speaking of Dusty, he does get his own love interest. Her name is Ashanti, or Ashanti. And she's sort of what they call a tritagonist. Basically, a tritagonist is sort of a protagonist, but with a little bit of an anti-side to her. A tritagonist is basically stuck in the middle. It's like she's pro, but she's also, there are things she'll do that's not right. Excuse me for a second. Hold on for a second, I'll be right back. Sorry about that, folks. My mom was just calling me to let me know she was coming back. But anyway, getting back to the review. Anyway, Ashani is basically known as I guess as some people have described her as a tritagonist, being pro with anti, or as some people would say, anti with pro. You know what I mean? But she's more pro than anti. Because she does show she has feelings for Dusty when he first meets her in New York. Sorry about that again, folks. Had to open the windows. But anyway, she's basically Ashani shows that she has feelings, or shows some interest or attraction towards Dusty, and if not later on, some feelings for him as well. And Dusty, returns those. Obviously, at times throughout the film, does return those feelings as well. So they basically are attracted right to each other almost right off the bat. They don't fall in love just yet. They're kind of like, I guess you could say, they're kind of like, how do you put it? I'm trying to think of his name right now. I gotta go check my movie on that. Their attraction is kind of like Lightning and Sally. Sally takes a liking to Lightning, as we all know, and Lightning kind of takes that same liking to her, and takes time. And just like with Sally and Lightning in Cars, they do kind of get some moments to themselves, where you kind of see that the attraction is there, and then they're finally kind of not committing, but confirming that they do kind of really like each other more than just friends, or, respected racing peers. But here's the thing, though. Her role in this is the fact that her role, which gives her the title of tritagonist, is she's sort of working with Ripslinger. She doesn't like what she's doing, but she's sort of doing it on the slide that she needs obviously feels that she needs a new propeller. So what she does is she kind of, during that kind of like get to know moment, kind of, you know, show that there's more between them than just friendship and, you know, being respective racing peers. She kind of hints that maybe he should take, you know, the, I guess you could say the bottom, no, not the bottom, but she basically suggests to Dusty, hey, you know, you should go a little under, you know, kind of keep what you're doing and go under the tunnels, and you might make it there a little faster. Basically make it to the next destination. Well, Dusty takes this advice, and he does end up making it to the next leg, to the next stop in the race, and he ends up making it there first. Now, according to what some people have said online, and some of the Wikas, is even though it was sort of a setup done by Ripslinger, but even though Ripslinger had her set him up to do this, to try to get him out of the race, she basically in turn said, yeah, I'll say, okay, fine, I'll do it, because she needed the new propeller. But in a sense, she's like, oh yeah, I'll do it all right, but I'm going to make sure he gets to first. That's what some fans indicate, and that's what happened. He ended up being in first, even though he took a more dangerous, more treacherous route. And of course, he's not happy with Ashani. And Ashani obviously is not happy with herself either, or happy with what Ripslinger did. And Ripslinger's like, hey, look, well, you know, what about that propeller and all that? What did that cost you, kind of deal? So, anyway, Ripslinger's not too happy with the fact that Dusty was put into first. And Dusty keeps being in first. He keeps focusing now on trying to win. Not just proves that, hey, a crop duster can be in this race, but he ends up trying to prove he can win. And at the same time, he finally gets rid of his bottom, his little crop part, if you know what I mean, to kind of lighten his load. So, again though, he ends up finally getting in first, but then Ripslinger's like, you know, enough's enough, you know, we need to take care of this guy. So he has his two guys, his two henchmen, if you will, Ned and Zed, voiced both by Gabriel Iglesias, to take him out. Basically cause him to kind of fall back in the race, and that's what he does. What happens is that Dusty ends up, what happens is they end up taking off Dusty's antenna. Dusty ends up getting lost a little bit, and then is recovered or helped out by two Boeing jets, like the kind he saw in his dream, like the kind that were in his dream, both one voiced by Val Kilmer, and I think the one is called Bravo, voiced by Val Kilmer. The other is Anthony Edwards, who voices Echo. So they end up voicing those characters. And they take him to the USS Fleisenhauer. And here, not only does he get help getting an antenna back on, but help getting repaired and fueled up, he also looks at the Wall of Fame and sees that Skipper has only done one mission. And he realized that Skipper wasn't telling him the whole truth. And he wanted to know before he took off. And Skipper finally ends up admitting that everything is true. But before he can get everything out of him, but before Dusty can get why he didn't tell him the truth, and everything, Dusty is told by the Fleisenhauer crew, hey, you got to take off now. You got to beat the storm out before it really gets bad. Well, Dusty, he ends up taking off, but because he's so, and even though he's trying to stay on course, Dusty's still kind of like, his mind's kind of wandering right now, like, he's still wondering why Skipper lied to him, why Skipper said all this to him, and that because his mind's not focused on the race, and more, it's starting to kind of like be more focused on Skipper lying to him. He ends up basically getting struck by lightning and ends up crashing into the water and almost sinks to the bottom, and until he is rescued by a helicopter, who obviously I think contain his friends or something like that, or not. End up basically being rescued by one of the plane helicopters, or something like that, basically by a rescue chopper and is taken to Mexico, where he's basically damaged almost beyond repair. Almost. And it feels like he just wants to lie down and just not do anything and give up, right? So finally, Skipper and him do have a moment. Because, Dusty's thinking, you what, you guys are right, I shouldn't have done this, it's stupid. But Skipper, and he finally gets some time with Skipper, and Skipper admits, look, I didn't want to tell you the truth because when I went on my only mission, the people I was training, or the guys that I was training, got shot down by a Japanese naval base. We thought everything was clear, we'd go down and see what was happening, and they ended up getting killed. So that's why he never flew again, and why he didn't want to train anybody, but he ended up training Dusty. So anyway, when it looks like he's about to give up, all of a sudden El Chupacabra wants to return the favor to him for helping him get Rochelle on his side. And so everybody's donating parts. First, El Chupacabra donates some parts from a plane in Mexico that they know of, some wings. Rochelle donates some parts. Other racers, except for Ripslinger, and Ripslinger, here's the thing, he ends up getting shunned just about by every racer. So, Chupacabra, Rochelle, Bulldog, every racer, including Ashani, who shows that, hey, I still care about you, I still love you, if you will, by giving him, and she shows it by giving up the propeller that she got from Ripslinger and saying, you know what, if I'm going to win this race, I'm going to win it with what brought me to the dance. Showing that she not only still cares and loves Dusty, but also that she'd rather do it the right way instead of the wrong way. So, anyway, everybody's donating parts. Dottie is able to fix him back up, and the race is back on. And of course, Ripslinger's not too happy about this. So he and his henchmen are like, okay, we need to get this guy out of the race permanently. So when they reach the desert part, and there's no cameras or anything, they end up trying to take Dusty out, but they didn't count on Skipper coming to Dusty's aid. Skipper obviously is inspired by the fact that Dusty, has got his confidence back, and like I say, you know what, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to finally try to finish this deal off. Basically, Skipper, gets inspired and says, it's like, what, if Dusty doesn't give up, and Dusty's still going to fly, and people want to help him continue living his dream, then I'm going to... Basically, he gets inspired. Basically, Skipper comes to Dusty's rescue after he kind of inspires him to be like, look, I didn't give up on my dream, you shouldn't give up on yours. And that's what happens. Skipper is like, okay, I'm going to come to this guy's aid, and that's what he does. And he helps take out Ned and Zed. Well, not Ned and Zed, but he ends up Dusty takes out Ned and Zed, not by destroying them, but basically getting them trapped into a hillside. Obviously in the Grand Canyon or somewhere. And Ripslinger and Skipper are kind of going at it, and Ripslinger kind of rips off a piece of Skipper's tail. But Skipper tells Dusty, hey, I'm fine, go ahead and rend this thing. And that's what happens.